can I say, since you offered me something, I need to offer all of you something. Have a look at this.
Scone.
With dates?
These are date scones with a very generous allotment of butter, because my butter had run out, so I just had to cut the chunk that was in the fridge, not in the little butter container. So I got a very generous amount. But there is a story to these. These scones were made. I get a lot of messages on social media saying, particularly this year, people ask, oh, my partner loves you and the show, or my gran loves gardening. Can you send her a video for her birthday, or can you do this and that? And I do it because it's always special. And I got this message from a lady who's a carer, and she said, oh, I was just wondering, I know you're busy and blah, 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 but would you be able to send a message to one of your biggest fans for her 100th birthday? And I was like, 100th birthday? I said, message? I said, bugger that. I said, we'll do a video, FaceTime call. So I rang her up for a birthday, and it was just, she went nuts. And anyway, a carer texted me the next day and said, Nan's out in the garden. She said, Costa's going to come round one day and I've got to get the garden looking good. And she's still gardening at 100. And I kept in touch, and then I thought, we've got to do a story on her. And I told the researchers, and then we followed it through. And so for the last 3 days, I've been filming with her, and she insisted that she makes, because she makes them. So she made those. These scones were made. Made by a 100-year-old absolute community gem called Phyllis. And I'll give you the inside running. That's going to be my story for the Christmas special. Because we thought we need positive stuff to finish the year on. And you won't be disappointed. She's an amazing woman. And so I've just been doing a live broadcast for the Sustain, the Australian Food Movement. I do this monthly Garden Odyssey, edible Garden Odyssey, where I travel around and we're talking about urban agriculture and food growing in cities and so on. And so I finished that just in time, and I'm here. So yeah, anyway, I digressed with scones.
Fantastic. Well, we're so glad you're here, Costa. And we didn't have quite the same story with our biscuits this morning, because we have a few restrictions around COVID. They did have to arrive wrapped in plastic, but they were locally made. They were Tasmanian. So, you know, we were reducing the transport miles there a bit, and all local produce, right? So, you know.
Yum.
We're doing the best we can in the situation that we're in, and actually we're having a good time, aren't we? Yeah. Yeah. Lots of fun and frivolity. It's really important.
Fantastic.
So, Mr. Community, you know, you're our community garden ambassador around Australia, and we're really pleased about that, because you're always sharing fabulous ideas, whether it's on a Friday night or via Zoom or the zillions of other interactions that you have with people all around Australia. We'd be interested to hear about some of those in terms of community connections, what you're seeing around Australia, bringing community together, you know, in this time of COVID, but beyond, the strategies that people are using to keep that connection. That's been one of the strengths of this difficult time, community.
Yeah, well, thanks, Joe. And thanks everyone for the chance to come and have a chat to you. And can I say congratulations to each and every one of you for taking the step and committing to do this course with Joe, and you know, signing up for a permaculture design course is a real line in the sand. because we can talk about things, and we do the things that we do, but when you do a design course like this, it really brings so many threads together. It coalesces lots of drops of oil floating around on your ocean of life. And I think that was a surprising analogy. I don't know where that one came from on a Sunday morning, but anyway, you're bobbing around out there, and if anything, what's happening in the world at the moment is there's people making more waves because they believe that the more waves that your boat has to deal with, then the more fear is embedded. And then when there's fear in community, there's control, because people hang back and they don't commit, and they don't want to put themselves out there. And that has, very distinct ends, which means everything gets concentrated in smaller places. And whether you talk about that as the food system, the political system, energy, water, all of these things, what's happened is they've been concentrated, and with concentration comes control. So I don't only say that as negative, because what you're doing is you're concentrating. By doing this course, you're concentrating a whole lot of your ideas and experiences, and allowing a guide, someone like Jo, with all of her experience, to bring you through a new lens. And that lens gives you this chance to amplify ideas and change and visions for the future through the community that you're in. Now, when it comes to community, the definition of community is vast. And you're in many communities. You are now part of the permaculture community, and you have a very specific community group. The 20, how many was there, Jo? 24 of you, or 26 or 22?
Yeah, well, 27 started.
No, 27.
Yeah.
So there's 27 of you that are part of this course with Jo, but you're going to remain connected forever. I've taught on courses, I've been on courses, and I'm interacting with these people all around the country constantly. So what's really nice about this group is, you're not a group that came together because you were at high school and you had to be there, or that you were doing a uni course and you were doing a general studies subject and you had to be there on a Thursday. Like you chose to come here for the however many sessions it's been, and you share a lot in common as a community, and you'll be able to work together. You'll be able to call on each other to support each other, and that's truly what community is about. I look at my street, and I grew up here, and when I grew up, from a community interaction point of view, there were only low fences. Right? And I remember when the first high fence went up with the garage door right to the boundary. And I remember the first one. I remember it clearly. And then, of course, the second one came. And what that did in terms of my study in landscape architecture, it changed the proxemics of the street. Because instead of seeing the people's house and seeing inside the window or seeing them there and giving them a wave, suddenly you've just got this, and that's it. And the only time something changes is from 50 meters away, the door goes up, the car goes in, and the door comes down. That's what it's doing to community, hiding behind this thing. And that's where the 80s and 90s of this, let's have a home theatre. Like, what a bastardization of community was the whole idea of a home theatre. The theatre is to go to the theatre, to be communal, to actually go to the cinema and watch it at a cinema, because you go and have a meal beforehand, or you go and have tea or cake or coffee or a beer or whatever it is afterwards. And what does that do? It creates businesses and creates connection and creates interaction. So, these things have far-reaching impacts. These are cultural you know, in some cases they're cultural builders, but in my eyes, something like a home theatre was really just, you know, this cultural spin effects just rolling through the community because people just shut off. Design changed. Architects started designing for this internalized life. And oh, there's my courtyard, and I don't do anything on the street. And then all of a sudden the whole street became like that. Even the semis, you know, each semi has, you know, and the arse end of the car sticks out because the garage door can only go down, and, you know, it's sticking across the gore of the car because it can't fit in. But people still want this. You know, I've always wanted to start a series of the show saying, I want to take community to the next level. And you see my hand on a excavator, and I just go boosh and just smash one of those garage doors down and say, people want to grow a garden, and the best piece of real estate in the sun is the freaking carport. You're parking the car on the most productive part of your land, and then you've got some shite backyard trying to grow. And then I get all the questions. Oh, why does my passion fruit grow onto the neighbour's side, and my star jasmine's living on the neighbour's fence, and I can't grow anything here? I go, well, you know, because it's shade, and you put cypress pines along every boundary to continue this theory to community with your neighbours. You know, I don't want to see them. You know, so I digress a little. No, I don't, because it's all about community. It's about who is our community. So my concept, my point about the street was community changed, and it went like that. It went from the face of the buildings to the boundary line with walls, and it turned the community space into a canyon that just became a car park, right? But what I say is these arteries are still there. Those arteries of community we still move through them. How do we make them relevant again? How do we bring them back into priority? Where do we spend our time, and in what community? So when I say to your community, I say to someone, oh, what's a community garden? And most people think of it being sort of a space that's council established to guidelines, and there's a fence and and maybe a structure and some independent beds. I want you to think about the communities that you're in. You're in a family community, your immediate community, your household community. And then there's your extended family that may live with you, that may live near you. And then there's your work community. And then there's the school community that you may be involved with. And then there's activities. What activities are you involved in? Any birdos there? Any bird watchers in the group? Any hands up? Yeah, see, I got my bird shirt on because it's the Aussie backyard bird count this weekend. I've been out counting early this morning. You know, it could be your birding club. It could be your the sports club that you're involved with, or that the kids are involved with. The school community, that's a massive one. Could be the Chamber of Commerce. It could be the golf club. It could be the tennis club. I don't know, but think about, because if we want to think about connections, if you want to think about what motivated you to do this course, what's frustrating you about the world, what COVID has agitated and shifted through the provocative consequences of lockdown and being deprived of community and being deprived of the things that you take for granted, all of a sudden there's been a shift in priorities, because you say, well, what is it that I really need? Because when it's all taken away and it's whittled down to bare bones, you know, when we're at the gates, when we're at the pearly gates, whether you're James Packer or Rupert Murdoch, all the baggage is left at the gate, and we're there stark naked with who we are. And who is our community? What can you really not live with? I mean, you probably gather that I can live with and do not possess a home theatre. But
what do you really want? You know, what are those things that really matter? And, you know, I mean, I've learned about life that the community I have is it's what we carry with us. It's the people that make us feel, that make us you know, physically sense and engage. Like that, you know, that scone means everything to me, because they were made by Phyllis's 100-year-old arthritic fingers that she said, oh, you know, it's a little bit hard and sometimes I have to actually pull the fingers out like this. But, you know, that is full of love, and that's 2 days old, and I just drop it in the toaster and heat it up, and I'm just totally engaged in everything about her. And I think when we establish what our communities are, then we can see how the information you've learnt over this period of time can be threaded out into the world around you. And probably the biggest tool that Joe's given you is, and given that today is your design presentation day, it comes down to communication and language and reading a room. Who are you presenting to? And when I say that, not just your design, but who are you talking to? And you only need to look at the state of the world in 2020 and see that most communication is the same as that garage door coming down, because no one wants to let anyone close in there. So the garage door goes down in stereo and people are out the front punching on about their ideas because they fear rejection, they fear sort of disagreement. When your ideas are bedded and when you understand the things you're talking about, then you can present them in a way that you use the right language for a start, and you jam a 4x2 under that garage door and it ain't coming down because you're there and you're speaking the language. And I think when it comes to you going out there into the community to start the projects you want, communication is the key. Like, you can have the best ideas in the world. I've seen it. I've seen some of the most mind-boggling, inspiring projects turn to dust because they were dropped on a community. They were jammed in there. They built the school garden during the school holidays and they wonder why the kids run all over it, because there was no education. But people saw that as like, no, look, I'm busy. I'm saving the world. I'm giving you something. Listen to me. I'm giving you something that you need. Hang on a sec. You know, once we've got to be very careful when we're working in community, because we can want to save everything, but we won't save anything if we don't do what's needed. And there's process. And I would say to you all from the top, make sure that in process, you understand that the process is the idea. Because if you just go for the outcome, well, then all you're wanting is likes. And likes in the world of today is basically irrelevant, because that's just a number. And is that what you want? Do you want just numbers, or do you want the comments? It's the comments and the shares. This is what I talk about if I'm on this world. I don't care whether there's 10 likes or 1,000 likes. It's about the comments, because that's what community is about. That means you've got conversation and exchange and engagement and buy-in and disagreement. But you don't go, oh, no, they're not punching you. And this is a key thing with any of these projects that you want to have a go at. We have to find this place where I am sharing a project or an idea, but it's the idea that's open to question and to debate and to disagreement, but it's not personal. And I see it, you know, particularly, you know, when people come off a course and they're fired up, they've got ideas, you know, it's a bit like people coming out of an Amway session. They're going to go and sell to all their relatives, and then they're going to sell to all of their relatives, and you're going to be the top of that, that, what do they call that? Chain selling, or what is it? Pyramid, yeah. Yeah, I'm doing that, but I can't. Yeah, pyramid selling. And you're going to be the top of the pyramid. You know, 2 days later, you suddenly get your first rejection and you're taking it personally. So I talk to kids about this a lot, but it's relevant to everyone. It's relevant to me too. I don't put the issues I'm talking about, I don't take it personally. I don't hang myself in front of it. You're behind it, and you're observing it, but it's not you. And when you do that, and I really can't stress this enough, because you will not get tired, because you will say, okay, yeah, that's a fair point. Whereas once you start taking it personally, you become defensive. When you become defensive, you fill the room. And people get that defensiveness from the time you pulled up in the car park. Don't worry about that. Like, it's there because you're like, I'm coming to show you what you need, sort of thing. And if you actually step back from your projects and think about how you can engage and connect with the community that it is intended to be engaged with and incorporating, well, then blowing the trumpet about the project is not so much the end goal. It's actually getting the comments, if you're talking online community. And it's about getting the shares. It's about inspiring people to think about the project and share and comment and buy in, rather than just be a presentation. Because a presentation is one way. And if you can think about all of the projects that you're doing in that way, well, then you will see it as an entity that's moving, and that you're kind of coaxing, coercing, panel beating, dragging a little, pushing a little, directing, putting some road markers in, and then just letting it, it'll get to a point where there won't be any more of that. And that's ultimately what you want. You want that life of it to come through. So that would probably be one of the biggest things I want to share with you as far as community connections go. Because when you put yourself out there, you're not putting yourself personally. You have to protect yourself as an individual. No one has the right. And that's one thing about the world today. People see it almost as a privilege and a right to say whatever they want in whatever way they like. And what you need to do is acknowledge that they're saying that. Don't rile up about things. Don't step back. Just say, yeah, that's a fair point. But what we're talking about is the project, because people will always come at you when you're doing different things. And we were talking in the broadcast earlier today, Jess Miller, amazing counsellor here in City of Sydney. And, you know, no is a fear reaction. And remember that what you're doing, the stuff that you're doing is you're bringing different ideas. You're bringing thinking that's not in the normal, or that's out of the routine. People, we are bad. We've been sort of conditioned into a state of convenience where we just want this world of convenience where it can all come to us. And everything is here bringing it to me. So when it doesn't quite work, the first reaction is no, 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 no. And as you bring these different ideas that say, oh, let's just do this differently, remember that we do change badly. Humans, particularly humans in the 20 whatever century we're in. I don't know. I lost the context this year, but 20 something. But yeah, just remember that people don't do change. So what it is all about with community is language and connection, and how you connect, the people you see. Look at yourself. Remember that we're constantly putting ourselves out there, but before you turn the mirror on others, constantly keep it on yourself to see how you're engaging with that community and what the end game is. And when you understand the end game, then you know that throwing that blanket out and bringing in as many people as you can is more important than getting the project done, because done is just some moment in time that doesn't mean anything if we've just bulldozed the community to get there and put the plaque up, which will then end up swinging like a dunny door in 18 months time when no one's been there. I've seen so many school projects that they go and drop this spaceship in the school holidays, and then the children are like, well, they don't even actually see it. They just run through it because that's been their playground. So what you're actually doing as change makers, what you're doing with this work in community is opening people's eyes to new ideas and change, but using a language that they can relate to. So whether you're talking to the teachers, whether you're talking to the parents, or whether you're talking to the students, the most important thing I do is I don't change the language in terms of what the intentions are, but you just adapt the tone and the delivery to suit the circumstance of the community. So if I'm talking to kinder kids, I don't take microbiome, I don't take mycorrhizal fungi, I don't take anything around black soldier fly larvae. I go, the maggots, and it's the same thing, but you just talk about it a little differently. This is kind of the thread I know that Joe mentioned in terms of community connection, because what you're taking out now is a raft of ideas and a view of the world now through a lens that when you think about the permaculture principles, you can talk to these principles without even saying them. Some people will want to hear them depending on the group. When I first started with Gardening Australia, permaculture, I had to traverse, because there was certain structures and certain mindsets that didn't want to know about that. So what do? Get huffy and snuffy and just keep banging your heads against the wall, or shift the language, let the people say it, not me, and allow that thread to come in to the point now that, one of your very own, a dear friend of mine who I've been working with long before, even before when I was on SBS, we now got Hannah Maloney as a guest presenter on the show, talking about things that I couldn't even get up back then that I wanted to talk about. But I don't sit here now and go, fucking. I just go, well, it's about pathways and creating, passage for these things to happen. And now we are talking about biochar. We are talking about elements of permaculture principles we're talking about regenerative agriculture. I was, oh, that's, you know, when I first started, that was all, oh, well, that's, oh, there's a couple of birds I need to, oh, that was interesting. Oh, sorry, I just saw a couple of birds. I haven't seen
Hey,
that.
Costa. Oh, sorry, I interrupted too. What kind of birds were they?
I don't know, but they were big and they just landed in the trees in the course opposite. And I was like, oh, and anyway, yeah, you know, that back then it was like, oh no, that's agriculture, that's landline. And I'm like, you know, this is urban agriculture. This is gardening and farming and gardening and you know, but you just adapt and pivot and adjust and shift and say, well, we'll tell it like that, or you let that one go. And that's probably the other one that I'd say to you when it comes to community. It's about timing. And sometimes you hit a speed hump and you just accept that you bottomed out and scrape the sump and you power on and launch, go a bit faster at the next speed hump so that you don't hit it, you actually take off. Other times you hit that speed hump for a reason, to slow you down so that you arrive at the T intersection, and that's when you see the truck with the supplier's name that you have been trying to remember because you actually slowed down. And it's the same with ideas and projects. Sometimes it's just not their moment. You know, we wanted to put Indigenous names up, and that's a process to put those up on the show for the suburbs and the places where we're at. And again, it was sort of a timing that this last period of time it happened, you know, so you don't lament over the tap 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 tap, oh, hold back, tap tap. Because if you just keep banging, then you just become known as a one trick, oh, that's all you're banging on about. And you don't want that, because then that taints the actual goodness of an idea. If there's, and that's not to say that you stop at the first, as I say, speed hump. Read it and work with it, and sometimes allow it to go back around the block and then come again at it with a new idea. That presentation didn't work, we'll let it be. We'll connect with another group in the community and we'll apply that project down in the land care groups now. Or the church has got something here and we're going to go to the church grounds and apply that there. Or we're going to build the food forest on this bigger block because they were blowing up about the fact that this was tight and they didn't want this and that. So yeah, community is something that you're all part of. But you know, the only thing is it's just a case of knowing, you know, which community hat it's going to be. You know, is it going to be, you know, the bee security one? Is it going to be the best food community garden? Is it going to be National Science Week? Think about who the groups are. You know, this week is Aussie Backyard Bird Count. There's a whole raft of people connecting in different ways. It was also Water Night, and Water Night connected the conversation around all the things you've been talking about. I don't know, did any of you hear about Water Night? No? Didn't make it across.
Didn't make it here.
Okay, I didn't do enough. No, Water Night was an idea where basically on Thursday night, people had to turn off their taps at 5 p.m. until 5 a.m.
Yep.
And the idea being you could have a bucket of water, you could still flush the toilet. It wasn't about intimidating people, but it was all about mindfulness to make you count. How many times did I want to go for the tap? And make you think about water. And then by thinking about water, you become more conscious of it. And then it starts the bigger conversations around, well, who's in charge of our water? Where's it going? How can I save more water? How can I catch the water that I've got? All of those things. And it then becomes political, because who's in charge of the water on a national level and what sort of wheels and deals are going on. But we can't start to attack that if people haven't got skin in the game at the base level. So you know, there's lots of really simple ways we can attach our messages and hook your project into like-minded groups within the community to get the support. Is that all right? Can you hear me?
Yeah, good.
If it's cracking up or anything, let me know.
No, it's great.
You know, who are those groups that we can get? And you know, the key thing is use the permaculture groups for your support, but we have to take it far and wide. We don't want it just in our orbit. You want it in your kids' sports groups. You want it in your the more obscure, the better. And what it does is it really makes you then think about the messages that you got to deliver and how you're going to package them. It's not same, because every time it's a little bit different. So are you going with a fashion message and taking it to the fashionistas, or are you going to the foodies? And how can we get to the foodies? And what level of foodie are we going for? Are we going for the gardeners? And are we going for the land carers? Are we going for the sporting types and people that want a challenge? And do we make a challenge in this project? Or, you know, do we want the artists? And how do we get the artists involved in a pollination story? Well, they paint the flowers of the meadows and the wildflower meadows, or is it really science? And how do we get, you know, the entomologists in? You know, think about any aspect of your projects and break it down into where are the communities that this connects with, and make it like it's a key orbital drawing. It's a key orbital part of your plan, because that's how you then start to infiltrate it outside of our bubble. And people have seen more recently just how bad elements of the technology bubble have you limited like that. And it's been limited for the sake of control to get marketing and advertising in front of you because of what you do. So you've got to think about what you do and how what you do creates footprints for others to follow, and how you get the scent onto the trail to get your communities, but more so other communities involved. Could be through Share Waste. Share Waste is a wonderful initiative, and there's already plenty of share wasters in Tassie. And basically you sign up on a website and you can take your food scraps to someone's house, or you can become a compost host. How good's that? Put that in your signature at the bottom of the page. Compost host. People go, what is that? I go, well, since you asked. And that's where we change narrative.
Yeah.
Because what you want is not you telling. You want them saying, and you know, to give you an example of that, when we had the nomination for the Logies, there was 1 month of Logie nomination, and people were contacting me for interviews and broadcasts and things like that. And well, since you ask, I can then put the spotlight on all the groups that I'm working with, all the groups that I support, all that. So it's what I want you to really think about from a community point of view is, how do you shift the narrative from telling to answering? And when you can do that, then you have a full embedded understanding of what your project's about, because you have to put the questions into the people, because then when they ask you a question, it's a whole different ball game, because it's actually the power has shifted from soapbox ye who knows all to, well, since you asked, what I could tell you about is, and that's uptake point of view. People will uptake that information very differently to.
Can we ask you some questions, Costa?
Yes.
Thank you. Fantastic. Who would like to ask?
I hope I didn't get too carried away there. I can have a scone and shut up.
No, it's all fantastic because, you know, it is drawing community together. You are here in the room with us. Yeah, we actually wanted you to be here for a couple of days so we could all sing and dance and perform, but
That would have been fun.
yeah. And I did have a song here ready, but gee, do people want to ask questions or do they want to sing and dance and have fun? Maybe which should we do first? If you have a question of Costa, please come up and ask. To do with your plan or community, anything at all. He's here with us.
So when you were working with councillors,
Closer.
right in your face. Sorry. So when you were working with councillors and decision makers within the larger community, how did you assist them to understand the ideas behind the projects you were trying to work with the community?
Probably one of the best things you can do is get them out of their comfort zone, out of the council chambers, out of the office and onto the ground. If you're talking about, you know, getting planting done in laneways, you need to take them and walk through there. You need to have meetings on site. You need to bring the local councillor that you're working on. You need to bring them and show them examples of what you want. You know, this is a fence with beautiful scented plants growing on it. And this is what we want to allow by being able to dig holes in that tiny little bit of pavement and plant something. And, you know, you don't have to, you know, and this is where you be a bit discerning. You don't have to say, oh, well, I want it to be a passion fruit. Because the moment you say that, oh, the passion fruit's going to fall in the street and people will die. We will have a suburb of rolled ankles because people trot on passion fruit. Little do they know, like, I call bullshit because people are going to pick them, right? They're not going to drop down because the person that's been looking after it is going to be like a hawk to pick those up. So the main thing being, I think, you know, standing in a council meeting, what you have to do is you need to get those local reps out there to see and feel it. They have to feel it, you know. If you're thinking we want this space, sure, you can do up your plans and your drafts and whatever, but and photos and Photoshop and all of that. But you need to bring them there to set up the context and say, look, you can see the school there. You can see the train station or the bus stop there. You can see this piece of open space. 7 street trees along there, an entire biodiversity planting bed through there. That concrete is useless. That can go. So that doesn't have to be the mayor and the full council, but you start to pick them off, like sniper, pick off the different councillors and bring them down. And I think that's really where, you know, letters and emails and things. How many emails have you got in your inbox? And people just go, oh, how can I, you know, and councillors have just got thousands of them. And so that may take a month to get the meeting, but don't be frustrated in that month. That's the key. Because with some of these, with a lot of community projects, it's sometimes a bit like television, hurry up and wait. When you're on one of our films, it's, oh, come on, we're ready to go here. And, you know, can you be waiting there? And then it's like, oh, well, the light's there. And then there's aeroplanes come. And then there's, you know, a whole lot of flying chainsaws go past with the cockatoos, and then someone on a motorbike, and then a blower and all these things. And 35 minutes have gone past. So I think don't be frustrated over timelines with some of these projects where you're going into institution, because they won't happen overnight. But just put good markers in so that then each time you're not rewinding to replace that marker. You go, right, well, we're clear on that. Now we're going to here. And then we're clear on that and we're going to there. And by making that really solid, you'll every time you engage, you'll go straight to the next point. So and then, you know, look at other places at the same time, because you go, well, if I don't want to go through the council institution, well, let's look at the church land, or let's go to the sporting club, or let's go to private land, you know, whatever that may be. But think about it in those terms. You got to pick your people, and you've got to get them out there to live and breathe it.
Thank you.
That's all right. I'm sorry you have to come up. It's almost like some sort of random bloody confessional. You come up and you sit. I'll sit like this.
I'll just put the screen across. Just pull it across.
Hi, Costa. Great job on getting the Indigenous place names on Gardening Australia. I think that's fantastic.
And, you know, the thing with that is, for all the work that was done by the team, and then to get it through the structure, someone might go, oh yeah, well, so what? But it's then a benchmark that others will look at, and then it will ultimately become something that others have to put on there.
Yeah.
And then the more that language is spoken, I was hosting a discussion yesterday with Bruce Pascoe and at the Bankstown Arts Centre, and we're talking about how the more the language is spoken, the more the land hears the language. The more the land hears the language, the more these stories will come back to life. And whether you take that directly or not is of no consequence. It's a reality. You know, this land has had that language spoken for a long time, and then it stopped, or it hasn't been as. So it's really important.
Yeah, it's great. And I liked what you said about it. You need to plant a seed and wait a little while sometimes. I wonder, what's a nice way to begin building a community? I moved into a neighbourhood and know some of the people and would like to build a stronger sense of community. And where would you start?
Probably, I mean, saying hello. And I know that sounds funny, but, you know, most people are like this these days, and they walk past, you know, because they're on a podcast or whatever. So I don't know if you're already growing things, but, you know, taking some fresh produce and knocking on the door and just saying, hey, sorry, what was your name? Alexia. Say, hi, I'm Alexia. I'm down number 7. I got a bloody shitload of zucchinis. Would you like some? You know, or whatever it is. I think that's they're the kind of old school ways that people used to do it. Whereas because it's now all on here, again, it mightn't be a home theatre, but this is the home theatre, and people spend a lot of time on that. So starting a garden in the front yard and starting a part of the nature strip, because when you're out there, people walk past, you say hello, having something there that, you know, put a little bit of rosemary there so people can pick it, and then you can say, hey, if you need some rosemary. And then when people are watching, they're going to follow up, and then the more you're out there. So I reckon, yeah, just be present in the space. And when you're walking up and down, if you see someone, say g'day. I know that sounds really, really basic, but I mean, I go out on the street, and I'm not saying it because of me, Costa, from being on television. I'm talking me, Costa, the neighbour, working on my street. Everyone walks past and they all say hello. And I mean, some of them, you know, probably don't even know whether I'm on telly or not. And it's irrelevant. Like, because when I'm on the street, I'm me, and I'm neighbour. And, you know, like I've got my compost bins, and I mean, you don't have to go to this extreme, but, you know, I've got my compost bins and 2 worm farm bathtubs and 4 compost bins and 4 worm farms and all this sort of stuff going on. I don't expect you to go to those levels, but, you know, I got the neighbours' kids come up all through COVID. They were coming up every night to say goodnight to the worms. No. And they lift it up, and then some nights they'd come up in their pajamas with their torches on, and, you know, and I'd take them in and say, come on, let's go and listen to the frogs. And they'd come in and like you saw their Maxie and Alyssa, their brains, their heads are just exploding because they're going, oh, and I come in, and then another day they're coming, oh, come on, get the chickens, and now I've got, and come and have a look at my bees, and oh, have a look at my native bees, and oh, have you grown this before? Boom, and take this. So I reckon do the same thing with adults. We're all kids. It's just that it's all been buried under adulthood, and someone giving you something, they're really simple ways, but it can also be, giving them a look, or have a come and try this, or take some of that. But yeah, I think that's a really, really simple way. Street library is a good way. Start a little street library and just say to people, hey, if you've got any old books, leave them out the front. And but the community composting is a good one too. If but yeah, creating conversation is probably the best way.
Thank you.
That's all right.
Come on, don't be shy. Chris, great.
Hey, Costa.
Oh, hello.
How you doing? I'm Chris.
Hello, Chris. Oh, so I'm a bit close to the screen there. Yeah.
Thank you so much for all your positive energy that you put into everything. You seem quite tireless. I'm working on developing a community garden at the moment. It's just in the starting phase, really. Something that I'd really like to see is kind of not having fences all around it. And but the first thing that when I tell people that this is what I'm working on, people are like, oh, it's going to get wrecked. You're going to put a fence around it? What are you going to do? But kids are going to wreck it. And you would have seen a lot of community gardens. I was wondering what security measures can one take? And I don't really want it to be security measures, but you know what I'm getting at. Yeah.
No, well, like Alexis, just in that same vein, like fear. When I did my street garden, I had to, as part of the thing, I had to go around and speak to the neighbours, and that was one of the first things people said. Oh, well, what's going to happen? People will take the produce, and I said, yeah. Which part of that is the issue? And they go, but people are vandalised, and I go, well, no, not if we're all part of it and we have the buy-in. Well, then everyone's watching it. It reminds me of this garden they built in a church out at Young, and it was right opposite the pub. And the day before the opening, and I was going out there for the opening, the day before, it rained, and they had 2 scarecrows out the front. And when they arrived on the morning of the opening, the 2 scarecrows had raincoats on them. Because the guys from the pub had sort of been watching this garden slowly come to life, and then they got some raincoats and put the raincoats on them. So, that meant that garden had eyes on it until 1 a.m., and if anyone went near it. So it's the same sort of deal. I haven't had any issues. I had one person pull up, and they started to, I remember I was on the phone looking out the window. I saw this person pull up, and they started pulling the plants out, like pulling the kale plant out and the silver beet plant out. And I said, I said, oh, hello. I said, you only need to take the leaves. I said, because it won't regrow. And I said, whereabouts do you live? And she said, oh, Bronte. And I said, you're welcome to take some produce. But I said, this has been grown by the children in our street. So I said, if you want to take some produce, it'd be kind of nice if you contributed, let alone not take it from whole, and just don't. She never came back. But I didn't say piss off, and I didn't admonish her or anything. I said, oh, I think you know, this is a community garden. And I said, it's not open. I said, it's open to everyone, but there's kind of implied boundaries, you know? So from your point of view, to answer your question, I've seen some really good things, but I would say in your case that what you need to do from the start, and that's what I had to do, I had to go around and speak to all the neighbours, right? And that takes time, right? Because the only time you can get them would be sort of from 6 till 5:30, 6 till 8, you know, because you don't be banging on the door too much later than 8 o'clock, let alone looking like me. They think Armageddon has arrived. But so you could only do a couple because because then I couldn't sort of turn up. Hi, yeah, hi, so great, yeah, great to see you. I'm starting a community garden. See ya. You know, because they say, oh, come in, have a chat, rah, rah, rah. So you do a couple a night. And so it took multiple nights to do it. And of course, I didn't get to one. Who do you think was the one that complained? The one, right? And then what happens? The council goes, well, we've had a complaint. Oh, well, it's because we're turning the street into a farm. And like I got everyone, I got like multiple families and all the kids involved. We did the no dig, we smothered all the grass, did the edges, paper, cardboard, loosened, manure, boom, 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 boom. Awesome. All mulched down, beautiful. I mean, underneath that, but before that, I had a verge that was crowned, so no water stayed on it. There was no grass. It was basically a runway for dogs to just land their butts and take off again. So we did that, and so it was all then straw. Beautiful, looked $1 million. But this is the thing, for me, it looked $1 million. Someone else like, oh, why does it look like turning it into a farm, right? And so the council then said, oh, no more verge work, no more new verges in the street until we do a survey of all the residents. And what happened? They did the survey, 93% in favour, right? So what's my point? When I went around and did all that work, if I had got people to sign and say, hey, yeah, we're up for it, then I could have just handed that to the council. And when that person rang up, they say, yes, Mr. Johnson, we appreciate your interest and your concerns, but guess what? The garage door's going up because the community wants it, right? And everyone's happy. So I'm not saying that you necessarily have to do that relative to the space that you may have, but you want to do it because then everyone knows what's going on and you can start to garner ideas from others as well. And then people, and it's unlike the playground garden that lands on the playground in the holidays and no one knows. The more, and see, initially I can almost feel it in the room that you sort of think, oh, shit. Oh, what, I've got to do all that. But no, think of that as a key pillar. It's a key leg of the stool. If you don't have that, it's a two-legged stool, it's going to fall. Or you're going to have problems trying to dowel that leg in later. And it never quite fits, you know, as opposed to getting it right from the start. So talking to people, sharing what you've planned. And then in terms of security, I saw one great project up in Armidale. It was an Indigenous community garden. And they went along and took all the willow out of the river. And then they built a fence with the post and just wove. It was just this beautiful woven fence that looked magnificent. I'll try and find a photo and I'll send it to Joe. But that was using a resource. So they actually went out and had a community day where people went and got that. And then they came and built the fence. So, and they got the Landcare group to help. They got unemployed youth to help. They got other community members involved. So they built a fence. They didn't impose a fence. And see how subtle the difference is? And the fence wasn't this big, high thing. It was just this nice, but it looked fantastic with the way it moved and shimmied along, and it was using a resource, and it included people in the boundary. And then think gate and signage key. Have your meetings on the site. I always say that, have your meetings on the site and get a sign up and get someone to make a funky sign and make a gate, even if you don't have a fence. Make a gate. I remember one Canoundra community garden, they had some mad ass welder, and he got bicycle parts and made the most kaleidoscopic, it wasn't a gate, it was just a bloody wall, right? And it was amazing. You wanted to just walk through and come back and walk through and come back. So, you know, think about what resources might be around, or what resourcefulness, you know, that's the other thing. There's resourcefulness in the community. It could be the local panel beater, or the you know, the steel age, you know, the metal worker or whatever. But think about gates, and think about, you know, creating a focal point, so that even when you're still getting grants and bits and pieces and doing all the planning, you can put something there. So when you get a photo that's going to go in the rag or go online, you can say, oh, there's so-and-so and so-and-so and so-and-so. And today we started the first bit of the fence, or we've cleared a section and put the first bed in, or whatever. But there's always this common theme, and it's on your page, and it's on your website, and it's on these things. So yeah, make the fence a community inclusive project.
Great, thank you.
Because it's not one of deflection, it's one of kind of definition.
Links everyone in. Great.
Yeah.
Cheers.
No, that's all right. I've seen some awesome fences and gates, and, you know, and then they're photographic opportunities for me.
And we'll be able to use things from the swap days that people may not be wanting to swap, that might be useful to build with, Chris.
Yeah.
I was thinking that.
That can work.
Yes.
Yeah. Costa, it's 11:30 already, mate. Oh, it's so peaceful.
You had a timer on that, didn't you? Oh, internet connection is unstable.
Are you there? Are you not there? You are there.
Oh, there is. Am I unstable? Am I? I think so.
Oh, so pleased you're back.
I'm very unstable.
Just like us.
Was there any other questions?
Any other questions for Costa? No plan questions from your planning. Oh, we're all just in awe. Here you are in the room.
Yeah, just to say, Joe, can I just say?
Yeah, come closer.
Oh,
Yeah.
just a statement, really.
Yeah.
Take it. Hi, Costa. This is Fiona.
Hi, Fiona.
I just want to say, look, this has just been wonderful. Thank you so much. And while you were talking, I could hear around me people nodding, or I could sense they were nodding, but I could hear them also just going, yeah, yeah. And you have just been speaking the language and the concepts and the visionary exactly as we've been doing with Joe now for so long. And it so resonated, and it was so supportive. And I just want to say thank you.
Oh, well, that's very kind. We both take that to heart. And you know, it's wonderful. You've been really blessed to have such a guide in Joe, because I know how much she genuinely deeply cares about not just the ideas and the concepts, but the message and the role of true connection, and not just sort of ticking a box and trying to do something because it's community. I mean, there's lots of bastardization of the concept of community too, you know, much like eco. You know, eco sort of just got so greenwashed and bastardized that it's easy for someone to throw the word community in front of things. So make sure you put your kind of community cleansing goggles on when you're reading the landscape of the world that you go out into with these ideas, so that you can just deflect and move around the detritus and the spinifex and roll through the forest and find those mycorrhizal fungi and hyphae networks that are a lot of the time subterranean, but you read it by what the trees are doing, because you know that it's under there, and it's the most supportive biggest living supportive structure there is in the world beyond a whale. You know, these networks are massive. And if you think about that, so I'll just bring it right back to the start. If you think about that and see this room is a very powerful network that you can draw on for advice, for assessment and bouncing around of an idea, because there's a trust there built on the fact that you've all gone through something together, which is this course. And when you come into a new learning space with people, you can't unlearn and you can't be together. And the thing I love most about it is that I orbit through life with these people and their projects and their ideas and their thinking 10, 20 years later. You know, people that I've been involved with in different courses are suddenly the sustainability educator at this council, or they're the designer of this project, or they're now running this food community food project, or like you're going to, and particularly on your country down there, you know, you're gonna intersect, and if you can think of that as like one massive bank account that you can draw on, that's constantly building interest, because the more you each do what you do, the more resourced your collective is, and you won't have to hit the same door that's already been opened, because you'll just take the pathway and continue, rather than hit walls and hit garage doors and stoppages. You'll move through and find ways to draw on your collective as a group that Joe and a lot of you are now part of. I'm sorry you can't leave. It's a bit sort of you're bound. You are bound. There's a band of green on your fingers, and you're part of an awesome group. And I'd say, you know, really utilize the support and you know, the love, because there's been a lot of love shared in the weeks that you've been doing the course, and you couldn't ask for a better foundation.
Gee, Costa, I'm so glad you're here. It's great. But I guess you have to go soon, right? Because you've got other commitments. Yeah,
well, I suppose, are you doing your presentations this afternoon?
Yeah.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
That's.
And we'd really like to send some through to you.
So I'd love to check them out.
Yeah, great.
100%.
Excellent.
Yeah, and you know, equally speaking of those connections, given that I've entered the room, you know, I'm tarred and stained myself. So if any of you have any questions or anything you want, then just get in touch at any time. If you want to bounce an idea or sort of you need you think, oh, I wonder who or where I should take this or whatever, don't hesitate to touch base and you know, again, hopefully utilize some of my network and help build our collective network even further, because there's so many good things happening, not now is the time. And even though it could be easy to get a bit side railed by, this is going to be a recovery, and this recovery is going to be led by this and that, and we're going to do this, and we're going to do all these different things, that you might necessarily agree with. Don't underestimate, there's a lot of people developing a parallel and positive alternative to just the same. And it's happening. It's happening everywhere, around energy, around food, around community. And you're part of it. Like, just being there, staring down the screen at me, I go, yes, that's a massive room of shift. And we change our world. That's the most powerful thing we can do, because that changes the world. I know that there's big ticket items, and we were talking to some of the artists yesterday. You have to let the, you can't sanitize it and say everything happy clappy and kumbaya and so on. No, there's some serious consequences at the moment, and we're reaching certain tipping points, and where we have certain challenges. You can't dwell in that, because that's useless.
Yeah.
But you need to know it, and you need to bracket it, and then you need to do and work at these positive small projects. Don't underestimate the smallest of things.
Yeah.
And don't think that just because you're in Lonnie or Tassie or just in one suburb of Sydney or one suburb, your projects are massive, because you have influence within your communities and people see that. And the best example you can be is an example to yourself. If you're drinking out of a keep cup, you're drinking out of a keep cup. If you've got worms and compost, you've got worms and compost. And then when you go to someone's house for a dinner, you can take your little bucket and say, hey, put the food scraps there, if they don't do it. So you don't have to say, why don't you fucking do it? You just go, hey, can I have the food scraps? And then there's a conversation, or it's just, yeah, buddy, compost tripper. Okay, I'll give you your food scraps. And then you say to them, well, bring them around weekly and just drop them off. So, and then someone comes to their place and says, what's that bucket there? Oh, I take my stuff around to this bloody friend of mine. She's so into compost and shit, rah, rah, rah. But you realize that you're suddenly resonating every day. That bloody little bucket there on the bench becomes a conversation resonator, an amplifier. It's like, da-da-da-da. And it's not you standing there going, shame, 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 guilt, negative, you don't know because I know, all that kind of stuff. And think about that. Think about it. We don't have to make examples when someone gives you a something plastic in the middle of a busy moment. You don't have to make a stand at that moment. You can just go, oh no, I'll come back afterwards and say, have you thought about maybe not using that plastic, and write an email and do stuff and, be caring and be loving about it. And again, not taking rejection to heart. I think that's a really important one. And I know I've banged on about it, but it is why we can maintain our own individual energy and resonate further and wider by maintaining our own personal health and strength. And when you feel yourself being drained, you develop simple ways to pull that sort of latch out and go, no, latch on to the project and the idea, not me. That energy is not for you. It's the project energy. So yeah, look, go forth this afternoon. Remember to stand next to your project, and take the ideas. Remember, comments are positive, even if they're negative, because they stir. And you look at Bruce Pascoe. If he wasn't hitting the right mark, he wouldn't have been on the federal agenda. Why do you think they wanted to take him down? Because he was on the mark, you know? So think about that, the negative stuff. And I mean, I cop it and you just go, oh, thanks. That's fine. That's all right.
Yeah.
So, and I don't want to finish on a negative because it's yin and yang, you know, it's all part of it and it will be out there, but it's just not about allowing it into here, you know. Just, I always say the best thing you can do is you don't have to build muscles to fight. You build suppleness by, or, you know, looking after your skin and oiling it so that it doesn't stick.
Let it slide.
Just let it off, you know. People can throw whatever they like. Whoop, whoop. Off it goes. Shit don't stick. But yeah, look, I'm so excited. I can feel the energy. I really can. I can feel, you know, you as a group, you've been this wonderful collective. You've learnt about each other. You've learnt about your nuances and the things that make you tick, and you're about to present, you know, something. And, you know, presenting something is a real personal thing, but again, remember, it's something that you're ushering, you know, and don't think it's a solo thing.
Yeah.
The
Well,
more community.
actually, it is a group thing, and we've had this little tradition along the way that whenever we're moving on, we kind of take a little bypass by Cuba. And we were just wondering if everyone would like to get up, and we'll just do a chain around so you can see that, you know, we really do want to dance, Costa, because that's what it's about, right? Everyone gets up and we'll just join the chain, you know, we're just
God, if anyone Zoom bombed this meeting, they'd be quick smart out of there. They'd go like, what is this happy clappy kumbaya secret group?
It's all about flow, right? There he is.
Go, Costa.
Thank you, Costa.
Have a great afternoon, everyone, and I look forward to seeing some of your presentations. It's been a real honour. I've really felt, you know, even though we're kind of not there in the room, but no, I've appreciated the chance
We'll be back.
to you. Yeah.
You will be back. Yeah.
Borders are opening soon.
That's right. Exactly. Borders are opening soon.
You're probably better off keeping us infected, bloody New South Welsh folk out of there.
We know,
True.
Costa, you know, the amount of compost that you manage, nothing's going in there. You're safe. Absolutely.
Yeah, no, I got more than enough bacteria to look after me.
Yeah. Great.
Have a great afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Joe. Thanks, team.
Great. Lovely.